So I am a little bit late to the SIG Spear LT train, but I guess better late than never, right? I finally managed to get a hold of one of these things for a long-term review because I was very curious to see how I was gonna like these things, because I've only been able to run like a mag or two through these previously, so I couldn't get a really good feel for it. Now you probably will notice there's going to be a lot of SIG product on this build, because since SIG got the contract for not only the bigger 277 Spear round, version of the battle rifle, but they've also got the DMR program for the Tango 6, the pistol program, all that stuff that I'm sure you guys are familiar with. So I wanted to just test out kind of this suite of what SIG is offering these days, from the kind of more expensive red dots to the DMR LPVO, and of course the Spear LT itself. And while the Spear LT is offered in a few different calibers, I chose the 5.56 to make my life a little easier. Since it takes standard AR mags and certain other standard AR parts, I figured why not save a little bit of coin, not have to buy specific magazines. This is the 16-inch variant, so with the addition of the SIG Next Gen SLX flow-through suppressor, it's definitely a long one with all that additional length, but that really makes me want to try out the 11.5-inch version, because I heard that was money with a flow can. Now the feel, look, and build is extremely familiar to an AR, yet just slightly different. It's got a modernized AR profile to the rifle, but being a gas piston system, which is adjustable for standard and kind of dirty or austere conditions, it recoils and runs very differently than a standard DI rifle or even some other gas piston ARs. It can take AR style stocks, AR style grips, and of course AR style magazines. It gives you M-lock and pick pretty much everywhere the AR does, minus the gas adjustment up there and the gas block, and has a very standard AR manual of arms, except for the fact that it's fully ambidextrous. So it's basically just close enough to the standard AR to make you feel pretty comfortable right away. Now, I do have right over 1,000 rounds on this specific SIG Spear LT, because I ran it not only with the AT red dot, but then I decided to throw that DMR LPVO contract optic on there with a Romeo X in the offset position. So this is not only going to be my initial impression video, but also kind of that 1,000 round follow-up with my opinion of this thing right now, having run it in a couple of different configurations. All the ammo costs here today were covered by Brownells. They've been my go-to in the industry since like 2007. They do a lot to help the channel here, and they also just do a lot for the Second Amendment in general, which is why I really dig the crew over at Brownells. That first day out on the range with that Romeo AT, I ran a bunch of different types of ammunition through this thing, just basic 55 grain, 5.56, all the way up through some 77 grain, all of which function flawlessly in the standard gas setting on this rifle. I mostly ran Badlands Munitions 5.56 because it's extremely consistent. They're my boys out here in Arizona. And I've had so many problems with ammunition over the last 2 years that I need consistent and good quality ammunition that I can afford to keep things going, because nobody wants to run problem ammunition. And if you're interested in anything that Badlands does, I'll have information for them over at the build list. Running this thing with that Romeo AT red dot, that thing seems to give you every option you want in a modern red dot. It's got a circle style reticle in there with a dot. You get 100,000+ hours of battery life. The thing is insanely durable from what I've seen people do to the thing out there online. It comes with really nice integrated lens covers on the front and the back, which is always a positive. And it seems to be that these SIG red dots have a little bit less color distortion, like magnification or distortion, than some other red dots do, even in this kind of higher end price category. It did take me a little bit to get used to the rifle, especially the trigger. So in this version, you have kind of a slightly curved 2-stage trigger right there. And while I like 2-stage triggers on like my precision rifles and stuff, when it comes to an up close rifle where I want to run it a little bit faster, I kind of hiccup with 2-stage trigger. And maybe that's a me thing, because I know tons of other people that love them, but that is something that I had to get used to. It's a solid setup, but it did make me a little bit slower until I kind of got used to that thing. And then I was able to start running those drills a little bit better. We had some paper targets up close, and then we had some steel set up, some C-zone at 35, 50, 75 yards to kind of work some transitions with the rifle and just kind of see how it was going to perform. I do have to say that the recoil on this thing is extremely minimal and controllable. And it's extremely consistent throughout the spectrum of ammunition that I ran. One thing I did notice due to the difference in the recoil here is the lockback was quite a bit different feeling than a standard AR rifle, even piston driven ARs. to the point where like I missed it a couple times. I just didn't feel that same thing that I get on my traditional ARs. So I had to like visually inspect to make sure that I had bolt lock, and then I did a reload. It locked back and did everything perfectly. It's just, it has a much different feel to it than a standard rifle. So you didn't get that like dry, hard kind of thud lock. It was just very smooth and kind of locked into place. Nothing bad, just something that I'll have to get used to when it comes to the Spear LT. And once I got settled in with this thing, I was actually quite happy and really intrigued by how the thing felt and ran. Now it weighs bone dry with nothing on it, no mag, 7.5 pounds, but it is a piston rig, right? Now, if you compare this to like a HK 416 with a 14.5-inch barrel, those come in at about 7.8 pounds, where this one comes with a 16-inch barrel and is 7.5 pounds. So it's right in there with other piston-driven systems when it comes to the weight. I threw that SIG SLX Next Gen can on there and just started to run the same drills and stuff like that. And I really have to say, this is kind of where the rifle and the can came into their own. The recoil, the sound, the speed at which this thing ran with that can on it, it was just a lot of fun. And that can had a really good sound on it with this rifle, to the point where I just ran it and ran it and ran it with the can, because it seemed to be just as a package better than just separate pieces, right? Like, I don't feel that the rifle felt as good without the can, and I don't feel that that can would feel as good on another rifle. So it was kind of the merging of the two of those things just made it really a great package overall. And that system they have on that new SLX can, where it's a thread on and that clutch lock system, was just absolutely legit, stupid easy, and the thing didn't carbon lock at all, which is very nice for a QD style can. Overall, after day one on the range, I was only happy, but I was still very intrigued with the rifle and to get more rounds through it. It ran 100% reliable on all the ammunition, whether it was suppressed or unsuppressed, all of in the lower gas setting on there. The controls were extremely easy to use, very intuitive. The magazine exchanges were good to go as long as I felt that bolt lock. So overall, I had a really good experience on day one. But there were a few things I wanted to change out just for personal preference reasons. So before range day 2, I knew I was going to take off the AT right there and slap on the Romeo Tango 6T with the offset red dot right there. That's the Romeo X Pro. And that mount, I have to say, this thing looks just absolutely sick with that whole setup on there. I knew I was going to change that stuff out, but I also decided to change to a Magpul K2 style grip, because it just seemed to be a little bit better. I personally like the profile of these better than the one that came on it from the factory. It seemed to help me get that safety a little bit better. I had a QD point up here already, and then I did throw that Tiger Claw on there from the people over at Die Frico. I like what they're doing. They make a really cool setup. It's got a good profile to it. I'll have links for all that stuff at the build list, but overall, I made those slight changes right away once I put the Optic on there prior to the second range trip. And if you guys are interested in anything you see here we're talking about today, I will have a build list. It'll be the first link in the description down below. And for those of you out there watching this in your employer's break room, casting it from your device to the TV, I'll put that QR code up here so you guys can scroll through that, check everything out as we go through the video. One other thing I did add was that Arasaka zero retention clamp system to the rail right here. So if you don't know or you haven't seen, if you grab the barrel or you put a lot of pressure on the rail, you can deflect that rail over to one side or the other, because if you take a good look, this rail is two pieces. You can see the bottom half right here and then the top half right there. So it does kind of slide off like that. Due to that, you can deflect the rail a little bit. I bought that Arasaka thing, threw it on there, and it seemed to solve about 75% of that until you put some really good force on that rail to push it over. So if you're running like an IR laser, PEC 15, whatever up front, or like a iron sight or something like that, you can have a little bit of deflection on that rail, even with that Arasaka zero retention clamp system. Other than the Optic and those things that I talked about, there's probably two other things that I'm gonna do, just because, again, personal preference. I'll likely put a single stage trigger in there, even though that two-stage trigger is actually pretty damn good. It's just, I'm not a two-stage trigger kind of person on a rifle like this. And then I'll probably put a Radian Talon safety on there, because those are just my go-to, and I kind of prefer those 45-degree safeties over a straight 90. Now, before range day 2, let's talk about the actual specs of this rifle. So this is a gas piston system. It is a 5.56 NATO setup. The barrel is cold hammer forged, 16-inch, 1-in-7 twist, standard half by 28 threading. That short stroke piston system, obviously up top, has a pinned 2-position adjustable gas lock for regular and austere conditions. The folding stock on there is a 5-position. It has QDs on it. The lower is fully ambidextrous with controls on both sides, and you get steel QD inserts on both sides as well. You get a slightly flared magwell, which is always a big positive. 7 positions of M-LOK around the rail with pick all the way down the top of it. This is the FDE NIR Cerakote, so it's like night vision stuff that helps it not stand out as much. It's 35 inches in the longest configuration extended and 26.5 inches in the folded shortest configuration. 7.5 pounds on the dry weight. It has a forward assist if you're into that. The upper, the lower, and the rail are made of aluminum, which is extremely common for this, and it comes in right at about $25.99 galactic notes. Now, range day number 2 out there, we had some paper targets for the up-close red dot, and then we had some steel set out at 125 yards just to run some transition drills and get a really good idea of how that Tango 6 LPVO is going to work, which it actually has a really clear and good look to it, not only to the red dot that's in there, but the reticle. And the glass is actually extremely solid on that thing. And again, the mount system on there seems good. Overall, just a very nice optic. It is second focal plane, so if you like first focal plane, I think they have an option for that now, but the actual contract version is second focal plane. And the red dot on there is going to be extremely usable even in the brightest of Arizona days. Now, is it going to be, burn your retina out red dot bright? No, but you definitely are not going to miss it even in the sandy, white, hot Arizona sun. And running several hundred more rounds of the Badlands munitions through this thing on that second range day, which was separated by about 3 weeks from the first, I really came into liking this setup. It ran fast, it ran as accurate as I needed to do for what I was doing. The recoil felt extremely consistent, very good. The magazine exchanges were easy, the controls were extremely easy. I got a little bit more used to that trigger out there. And overall, again, I really like the way this thing runs with that suppressor on there. That combination just seems to be extremely nice. And again, I didn't have any issues out there. Everything ran reliably, the controls were extremely smooth, and overall, I started to really like the rifle more than just being kind of intrigued by it. I will say it was not my best day out there though. I missed that 125-yard steel, I think like 3 or 4 times, which is not the norm for me, but I was doing everything wrong. I was like wobbly, I wasn't setting my feet in my hips, I was flinching, I was driving forward, I was just doing everything wrong. So I kind of want to do like a makeup day. I really want to put like a 3 to 18 on this thing and see what kind of accuracy I can get out of it, because some people out there have reported like 1 to 1.5 MOA with match ammo, and other people are reporting like 2+. So I'm extremely interested in getting another one of these in the same 16-inch variant and testing them side by side to not only see what the accuracy we can get out of it, but also the thing with barrel deflection out there. Like if you put an extreme amount of force on the receiver and on the barrel to see if you can get deflection in there. I really want to have a test group of 2 so I can test it out for myself and see if there's anything there, or if it's a torque setting or what's going on, like maybe the barrel wasn't torqued right. So you're probably gonna see that come in the future when I do a follow-up video on the Spear LT. But functionally and feel-wise, I don't have a single bad thing to say about the rifle at this point besides that rail deflection issue. Now, because nobody gets a free pass, right, is there anything else that went wrong or things that I think should be changed? So besides the personal preference stuff of the grip and the trigger and the safety, just based on the things that I personally like, I think they do need to figure out, either get with Arasaka and make that zero clamp retention system either standard on these, or come up with something on their own to just shore up the rigidity of that rail, because guys are going to want to run this like they're, modern AR. They're going to want a laser device out front or iron sights or whatever, and having some deflection up there can cause some issues. Now that may be a small case where you eat it, you drive the rifle into the ground and push the rail, but those things can also happen in transport. And if you're using this thing for work, that could be a big concern. So I would like to see that shored up a little bit. Other than that, I really don't have any complaints about the rifle at this point. Everything from this Romeo 8T seemed to be extremely solid. That Tango 6T seems to be a very nice piece of glass. I'm definitely going to be doing some more testing with that. Even the MSR light that SIG is putting out now, it's got the pressure pad light on there, kind of like the mod button style switch, a little retention clamp for your wire. It's got a secondary clicky tail cap on the light itself, takes Surefire style tail caps, or at least inserts for your pressure pads. So even that seems to be pretty solid. So overall, it seems to be that the rifle package just works, especially when you put that SLX can on there, it just runs completely different with that thing. And it's just very satisfying with that can on there. It's definitely something I want to use as like an optics tester so I can get the round count up as fast as possible on it. But if you guys have a Spear LT, no matter what length it is, definitely let us know in the comments what your experience has been, because I only have a test group of one of these things, so we could all benefit from knowing either how good, or if you've had any bad experiences, or maybe ammunition to avoid or something like that, because all of that will help the audience make a more informed decision. Make sure you get subbed up to the channel. The parts list will be the first link in the description down below. The QR code will be up here. And remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.